Hello and welcome to ETAuto, and welcome to this inaugural episode of a new series called Technology Talks. As the name suggests, in this series, we are going to talk technology around automotive, mobility, and our guests will be technologists and technocrats. And it's my pleasure and honor to welcome Mr. R. Velusamy, President, Technology and Product Development at Mahindra Mahindra, as the guest of this inaugural episode of the series, which is also aired on this World EV Day. So we are going to focus more on EVs and the EV ecosystem. And Mr. Velusamy, welcome to the show, and thanks for sparing your time.
Hello, Mr. Sumantra. How are you? And thank you for taking me in the show.
Always an interesting experience of having conversations around technology with you. So to start off with, Mr. Velusamy, belated congratulations on the unveil of those vehicles in London on August 15th. So if I were to ask you, now, what are the 2 or 3 technology pillars where you are going to build this new story for Mahindra and Mahindra in the EV space? There was, you had a journey earlier, things didn't go as progressed, but with this, you are kind of having a very concentrated approach, is what it seems to me.
It's a very interesting question. I had tried to answer that in the UK presentation. EV vehicle is a very different story where multiple things play out, and there is a commonality which we call commons, and there is a flexibility which we call flexible elements that are primarily not modular, and it's a unique for those. Some of the systems have to be unique. Now, our ability to differentiate what needs to be common and what needs to be unique decides the success of this platform. This is what I re-emphasize there. For example, the platform has to be absolutely common, because the battery where you mount in the platform, you cannot develop many batteries. I mean, it's a very expensive affair and very safety critical part, and critical to performance of the vehicle and range of the vehicle and safety of the vehicle. So therefore, the suspension, the quarter corner units, the steering unit, the brake unit, the e-motor, the onboard charger and converter, plus the battery, everything you leave and attach it with the mechanical system, cooling system thereof, you make it common. Fundamentally, you make it common, and then try and bring multiple top hats on top of it with varying heights. For example, you can have 1550 millimeters to 1750 millimeters. You can have the lengths between 4.4 meter to 4.8 meters, 400 millimeters length variation, 200 millimeters height variation, 100 millimeters front overhang variations. Number of seats can be 2 rows and 3 rows, And then the ground clearance, of course, you have to keep it for the Indian requirements. So primarily, this is what you are trying to do with that car. And then the success of the BEVs, what we call born electric vehicles and or battery electric vehicles, depending on how are you then able to differentiate between different cars, and how are you able to bring in differentiation in the software domain.
Right. I see.
Majority of the mechanical hardware is fixed. You don't have much space to differentiate in terms of performance. I mean, you can have 2 different battery variants, and then that's it, and that gives a range variant. But in terms of performance, you do have current flow for every 62 kilowatt hour or 80 kilowatt hour can have same acceleration. I mean,
right, indeed. And talking about battery, the heart of the EV and also the single most expensive component, and the most crucial one at that. Why? Just curious. Why LFP? Why not maybe some other chemistry, like let's say NMC? Is it because of the safety factor, and also the fact that given the dimension of an SUV, you give the space available for the battery pack kind of is kind of allows for LFP because the energy density is less than NMC, but at the same time, from the safety quotient, it scores higher maybe.
So in the long EV play that we want to have, where there will be changes to the GST and there will be changes to many, the incentives that are coming, right? There will be multiple changes that will happen as the ramp up of EV vehicle production takes place and percentage of EV vehicles compared to the ICE vehicles of the total changes. That we need to survive. That if we need to survive, then we need to have a cost-efficient battery system. That's number one. The LFP gives you a credible advantage in terms of cost. Yeah, significant advantage. That's 10%, 10 to 15% is in the cell cost that you see it worldwide.
At the cell level.
At the cell level, And second, the credible advantage that you get is the availability of raw materials. For example, lithium carbonate, electrolytes, aluminum, copper. These are all the basic fundamentals of that, and then the graphite, the iron phosphate. These raw material availability compared to nickel, cobalt, manganese availability is far better in terms of LFP raw material availability compared to the NMC raw material availability. So your supply chain is not choked, and you are kind of insulated from the in the raw material price inflations once you secure the supply. So these are the two things. It's like the catalytic converter having the precious metals. You look at the graph of the precious metals and your heart goes up and down. That's the question you never wanted.
Right.
So second advantage. Third advantage, inherently for a hot ambient like India, LFP has an advantage, and for a cold ambient, NMC has an advantage. Two different chemistries, not that it cannot work, NMC can work in hot and LFP can work in cold, but the natural style of that chemistry is that NMC is for cold and LFP is for hot. I mean, that's how the chemistry is. So why don't you use the advantage? But we have both NMC and LFP.
And in terms of the performance, of course, I mean, the high torque characteristic of it's an inherent the high torque characteristic in an EV. But from what you have showcased, the least powerful of the vehicles is expected to be what around about 220 odd horsepower and going up to close to 400.
Yes, you're bang on. Yeah. So somewhere in the EV the power matters, but more so is what the torque. Starting with start of the vehicle about 10 RPM or so, you quickly ramp up the torque, and you can reach the peak torque up to 70, 60, or even 50 km/h, depending on the transmission ratio. The initial feeling, the lag feeling that you don't have it. Acceleration is all about from 0 to 50, how much you reach. From 50 to 100, you don't worry about it, right?
Yeah.
And in ICE vehicle, you had a problem. 0 to 50, the torque is limited by the turbo lag and
yes,
the transients of the air intake system and the fuel flow. Whereas in the case of, and that's where you wanted an acceleration from 0 to 50, 60, you wanted a quick acceleration. The thrill.
Yes.
So the EV brings the thrill because you have very high torque because of these PSM machines. You have very high torque, and you bring in, and then the torque comes down, but the motor RPM increases, so therefore the losses increase and the torque comes down. But then the power compensates after that, so you don't realize the lack of torque at all.
Right.
And you have an incredibly high amount of torque to give.
So it seems that Mahindra will kind of put the performance card as a major USP for its BEVs, born electric.
Yeah, which we have always been. If you see in our SUVs, we are all known for the best drivability and handling characteristics. Of late, we brought the handling and ride and comfort into our our tuning and NVH to our tuning. So we take care of these four aspects: the ride, the comfort, the refinement, the NVH, safety, and the driving pleasure. So we give all these six together as a bundle. We don't give one or the other. We give
So
everything about.
that makes me all the more interested in driving those vehicles whenever they're ready. But Mr. Velusamy, this is also an example of collaboration at work. The automotive industry with the electrification megatrend is becoming increasingly collaborative in nature. In this case, two majors, one Volkswagen and M&M coming together. What are the prospects that are there for this collaboration to kind of further advance? Could there be joint development of products also?
We are yet to enter into the definitive agreement, and we have a terms agreement as announced. There are a lot of discussions on the way. Much of that will be discussed and elaborated later in the press. But what I can say is that we are working with them for the MEB electrical components. Right now, we are working with them. We want a very high quality source and the supply chain commitment. One of the reason that in our in our ICE vehicle, if I were to be a little frank, that while the demand has been far and higher than what we have planned as a production, we planned for 6,000, around 6,000, as you know, and while our previous demand has been 3,500 or so, we planned it 6,000, and then it threw off the roof, and we have double our capacity, and we have this problem. So supply chain assurance is the key when it comes to battery, motor, and electrical components. And therefore, this time we want to be absolutely sure and be with somebody who can help us to get rid of these supply chain problems. And that's the main. Then second thing is the quality.
So what are the core components that will come from the MEB platform for this for your vehicles?
We will announce it during the once the definitive agreement is over. But the battery components and the drivetrains.
And you rightly said that the supply chain becomes all the more crucial. And if I expand it a little bit more, the overall EV ecosystem. And in this case, with this global megatrend, it also provides India as a country to become an opportunity to be a globally leading EV hub with its scale of the scale and size of the two-wheeler industry, the three-wheelers, passenger vehicles, and also the commercial vehicles. At least the smaller commercial vehicles as in BEV form and others in hydrogen fuel cell. But in terms of the Indian EV ecosystem, to be self-reliant, it's still some time away. So from your perspective, where do you think we stand, and what are the gaps that kind of are also kind of proving as a little bit of challenges or hurdles maybe for the industry to move ahead in a better manner?
I think the government is doing extremely positive and well in regards to EV. I mean, who would expect the kind of incentives that the GST being 5%? That's when you take an SUV of 4.7 meters, you are at 48%, and this is at 5%. Yeah, and you have a PLI, production linked to PLI for advanced cell chemistry, and the government is really chasing us. Would you like to come and put a cell factory? And they're really encouraging us. They're contacting us. They're talking to us. Really encouraging. Then you have all the advanced technology related localizations. Then there is a PLI. There's a PLI for electric vehicle. I mean, the state government related incentives, road tax, registration tax, you name, there are some incentives for electric vehicles. The intent is quite clear. Develop the electric vehicle to get rid of dependence on the fossil fuels. Number one, it kills our children's future. Number two, that we have borrowed the planet from our children and we have to hand over them safely. I mean, that intent is quite clear, and then safeguard our economic, the healthcare, the health of the economy can be safeguarded if you prevent the outflow of dollars in the fossil fuels. I mean, these intentions are noble intentions and quite clear, and they are doing it very well. It's just that it takes time to gear up the complete ecosystem to go to EV. And we as OEMs, responsible OEMs, have to migrate ourselves, transit from ICE to EV, while taking care of the current business. We should revitalize ourselves and quickly move forward to EV, and that's what we are doing. And the whole effort of Mahindra unveiling the series of vehicles is based on that approach.
So, do you think India as an industry, now, if I look at it's let's say PV industry, let's stick to the PV industry, can be a globally, has the potential to be globally leading, maybe among the top three, as a not only as a market but also maybe as a technology development or in terms of self-sufficiency, in terms of the technology ecosystem also.
It can, the internal consumption and the internal need for an ICE EV vehicle is very high, because 70% of our petrol and diesel are imported. The fossil fuel is imported for it, and therefore there is a credible IRR for it. Yeah? I mean, it's incredibly so strong. Infrastructures have to be put in place, and the government is doing everything right for it. Now, can it become a global hub? For like the small cars, we became the global hub. Can it become an EV hub for globe? There are 2-3 things that we need to watch out here. The electric vehicles offer multiple other things. It offers a software-defined vehicle where you can keep defining your features when the vehicle is on the go in the road. Yeah. So you have a concept of software flashing microservices, and how well we gear up ourselves using our software manpower in India, how well we are able to restructure our complete ECU communication system, CAN network system, and the structure of the ECU. How well we are able to bring in the features, the software features that allows us to bring in every week new features to the vehicle, keep it refreshed every week, make the vehicle every week refreshed. That's one part of it. The world is moving towards that, and our ability to do that will determine number one. And then number two is the complete production of the battery related components, battery system related components, and motor related components, and the charger and all the. So there is a high voltage system components, and there is a electronics hardwares, high power computing system hardwares.
And here, Mr. Velusamy, I mean, it's interesting to know that while India is such a large producer of aluminium, in terms of battery grade aluminium, it's not there. That's the feedback that I get. It's not available.
It's not available. We will get it. I am sure we'll get it. So these the low voltage, high compute power systems, and high voltage electrical hardwares plus battery systems plus motor systems, we should localize. That will make us our EV vehicle future. Plus, we should be able to pay the GST for our. I mean, if you pay 50% GST, it goes to our building the future, right? For our kids, infrastructure, road, railway stations, airport, and so on, healthcare, everything. So the government can do an incentive for a while, but you should prepare your industry for being able to support the society, right?
To be robust enough to be able to.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Right now, the government and the society is supporting the EV industries to grow, but the EV industries have to become a Indian the prime model.
Not
and for the global hub, then it has to stand on its own, supporting the people and society and government, right? In the form of GST plus. We cannot expect incentives to come along, and therefore it is so vital that all those components have to be localized, bring down the cost, and create multiple innovations that attract customers, not only domestic but the global customers. And the third piece is the advanced driving system and safety, which comes inherently with the software-defined vehicle. These three things, how well we progress, will determine whether we become a global player or remain a domestic player. It will determine, and the ability of OEMs to crack these three frontiers of technology.
very well put there, no, Mr. Velusamy. And lastly, I would like to also ask you, as you mentioned, advanced driver assistance systems, no? And you showcased it with your XUV 700 for starters. And the electric vehicle being a more software-defined automobile compared to ICE vehicle, therefore the opportunities are much more. So are you looking at maybe an L3 up to maybe an L4 also?
So we did mention, I think, ADAS L2 plus. That must be an entry variant, right?
Okay, L2 plus onwards. Great, great. On that
Something
note,
launch. Something
sorry?
I have to keep it on. Something I have to keep it for launch first one.
Yes, yes, yes. Of course, of course. But always a pleasure talking to you, Mr. Velusamy, and thanks for sparing your time for this conversation in this episode of Technology Talks. And thank you very much. And best wishes with your projects. Goodbye.
Fantastic. Thank you. All the best, Sumantra. Thank you. Bye.